Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So another requested video I keep seeing in my comments is how I edit my real estate photography. So in today's video, we're going to be diving in how to edit different photos from different scenes, how I edit natural light photos, HDR photos, and off-camera flash photography for real estate. So let's get into it right now. Before we dive into it, it all starts actually before you take the photo. The more you can get exact and correct, the right settings and everything at the shoot on location, the easier editing is going to be. And that's how I want it for me. I don't want to, have to spend a ton of editing, fixing things that could have just been done better in post, whether it was like my exposure, my white balance, things like that maybe I just have to make this process longer than it has to be. So if you look right here on the left hand side, I've also created a preset pack for real estate photography editing. In case you guys are interested in that, I will show you how they affect these photos, but I'm gonna show you how I also edit these from scratch. So don't think I'm just plugging this and not showing you how to do this, but here is an exterior shot that we have. This is I don't know what these are, like a really fancy townhouse or something in Houston, but it's also purposely skewed up. Usually I always take everything, 100% vertical, but it's just such a tall building, 3-story or 4-story building, that I just had to do it like that. But still, it's cool. Makes it look more dramatic. But here on the left-hand side, if we go to exterior natural, you can see that, one click, that would pretty much put us in the right spot. So that's pretty cool. And then I also have another one called exterior dramatic, where it just basically intensifies everything, a little bit more of a dramatic feel, but still not over the top edited, because one of the biggest things I hate is like over edited photos. And I feel like at least a lot of like companies and people in my area do that. So I'm trying to stay away from that. Just don't have to do that. Just make it look natural. So this was shot, great exposure. We have nothing clipping, so that's why we don't really need HDR for this, in my opinion. But good rule of thumb, if you don't know where to start, you can just hit auto. Like, honestly, you can do that just to see what it's going to do. Typically, it's going to drop the highlights, boost the shadows, and then bring your whites to where right before they're clipping, and then bring down the blacks too. So that's already like a really good start. We can intensify this more, dropping the highlights more, bring the shadows up. Don't want it to look like too fake looking, so something like that, and then maybe add some contrast. Cool. So next, saturation basically intensifies all the colors, versus vibrance intensifies just the dominant colors. So I always like using vibrance over saturation. As you can see, it affects just like the blues and the greens, which looks, pretty good. Yeah, it looks really good before and after so far. Again, we want these to look pretty natural. So alignment, I'll get to that in a second, but always turn on profile corrections, just gets rid of those dark corners. We don't really have to do anything to the tone curve, whatever. And then again, we don't have to really do anything to the colors. Everything looks really good, natural. So that's pretty much it right there, before and after. Out of curiosity, I'm gonna see what it would look like if we did the alignment. No way, that actually worked. Wow, that actually looks good too. What? I thought that was gonna look ridiculous, but all right. I would actually be okay keeping it like that. Like, it looks fine. I didn't want to shoot it at 16 mil because it just caught too much of like the outside stuff and it wasn't too pretty. And so I shot it at 24 millimeters. So obviously I couldn't get the height to shoot that properly, but either way, just for, I would actually be okay sending it like that, but okay. So for editing purposes though, before and after. Looks pretty good. Another trick I like to do is use the dodge tool, bring up to like 0.55 is good, like half a click, and then also use a radio filter and just do it in the area that's the focus, and then bring down the exposure of the image so it's kind of like the one thing that stands out. A little trick I like to do. Yeah, that looks good to me. Last thing before we move on is white balance. So I try and get the white balance correct, but then I always tweak it here, but I always try and get as close as possible. Like if we left it like this, it would look pretty good, but let's see if we can make it more accurate. So if we have clouds, I usually use that as a point of reference. So you can tell that right over here in in the little preview on the left-hand side, it's gonna add some magenta and warm it up a bit, so I think that looks really good. Last minute little adjustments. Yeah, that looks good. Before, after. Cool, moving on. So here we have an interior shot, and so again, this is shot on one exposure. I think this was even handheld, and that's how I actually shot all of my stuff the first year of real estate photography, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so you can tell that we have a lot of mixed lighting going on. There's a lot of like tungsten, yellow cast, and then blue coming in here, and then obviously the outside is kind of like a cloudy, moody day, but we'll see what we can do with it. So here on the presets, you can see that we would use either natural light, which looks really good, and natural light, less orange and blues, which is probably what I'm gonna do for this because we got a lot of mixed lighting. So let's start from scratch again. I know we're gonna, reduce our highlights pretty much as possible, bring up the shadows. By the way, this shot on a 5D Mark IV using a 16-35, really good dynamic range. And then actually here, let me reset this real quick. I intentionally shot this more underexposed to recover this detail, and I know that these shadows aren't going to be clipping, so it's going to be easy to recover. So reduce the highlights, bring up the shadows. I mean, honestly, probably as much as possible. Don't want to look too flat, something like that. Yeah. Next alignment. Auto is like a good start, I find. Usually all my stuff, but always add your profile corrections, then do alignment, because then you have to like readjust it. But yeah, that looks good. All the lines are straight. Exposure looks good. So let's tweak white balance. I know if we click anything, it's gonna look super blue, so might not work, but I still am gonna try to at least get the tint right. So yeah, pretty blue, but let's bring it back a bit. Yeah, something like that's good. Okay, so basic corrections are done. That looks good. I don't think I really want to intensify any colors. So if anything, remove some of them, which is what we're about to do. So this blue cast coming in right here, you can go to saturation, use this little dropper tool, select the color you want to desaturate, and then it's gonna just affect those colors. So we don't want it like black and white, but we can just reduce it a bit like that. Yeah. Then up here in the ceiling, there's all this green aqua cast also from the outside, so we can also select that, bring it down a bit. Looks like it's mostly greens. Yeah. So before that, after, that's good. Let's see, these yellows, just a bit, and then we can bring the luminance of them up. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Nice. So again, the goal is to make this look natural, but like really appealing at the same time too. Like this just looks kind of like not that great. This, is a much more even image, and I would be totally fine sending this to a client. Like that looks pretty good. One thing I might also do is I like to use a lot of radio filters if you haven't noticed. Things like that are really cool. You can kind of like boost this section and then bring the exposure down of the image so we can get even more window detail. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You can make this a little flatter if you want. That's probably better than this. Just like that, a little bit more sleeker, modern looking. Yeah, I like that. Before, after. That's it. Now let's move on to HDR editing. So that's pretty much it for natural light photos. So a couple of pros of shooting natural light is it can look pretty much like how you see it to an extent. The only problem is you saw you're gonna have a lot of mixed lighting, but compared to some other methods like HDR, you're also gonna end up with a lot less photos because you're just taking one exposure for each shot versus multiple. But then major drawback, I think for sure, especially now shooting different methods, is your colors aren't as consistent, especially when you have mixed lighting. You don't have so much control over them, but it's a great starting point for sure. Okay, so when it comes to HDR editing, here's our next shot. Here's So I'm using auto exposure bracketing on my camera, and this is shot on the Canon R6 with a 16-35, and here's the 3 shots. So basically what it's doing is I set it to take 2 exposures, so one at -2, 0, and +2, and what that's gonna do is capture just, you know, all the detail that we need for the scene. I find that that's more than plenty, so, especially for this. So in Lightroom, you can select them all, and then you can go to stacking, group into stack, and then on there you can hit the command Shift Control H. Yes, that's it. And that's gonna merge that into one HDR image. And it doesn't take too long, but one of the drawbacks of doing this is, like, you can imagine it's gonna take a while if you do this for a ton of photos. Okay, so the photo has merged, and so you don't edit the one that you know, the folder that you mix the 3, you edit the one that it creates. And you can tell by the file name at the bottom, it'll say HDR versus like your camera's raw file. So here is the photo we have, and this is a twilight dusk shot, you know, shot at sunset. So here we can check to see, I have a dusk preset. Let's go to dusk natural. That looks pretty good. A couple of adjustments, but, you know, making this a little bit warmer, and then dramatic. Whoa, pretty dramatic. It's like the best way I can put it. Okay, but let's still do this from scratch here. So we're gonna reduce our highlights, bring up the shadows, and again, the whole point of HDR is to having more dynamic range, you know. If we bring this all the way up like this, you can see like we have all the information on the histogram, nothing is clipping, like, so it can be really beneficial in some scenes, especially like this. So I don't think we need to go all the way to 100, but maybe like 85. Bring down the whites a bit. Contrast. There we go, so far. Next thing I want to tweak already though is the white balance. I want this to look more like sunset, so we can try like the shade preset. Yeah, that looks good. But let me see also if I target a neutral color. Yeah, roofs are another good point also. So here's our image so far, looking good. Vibrance, again, is kind of like the thing I'm gonna intensify because it's gonna attack those blues. Clarity, you can sometimes add it to just give your image a little bit more of a dramatic feel, but don't overdo it because then it just looks immediately terrible. Like maybe just like 2 clicks, that might be good. After that, you know, you're pretty much done. Again, profile corrections are on. Enable your verticals, making sure they're correct. Looks like I can still tweak this a bit, actually. Yeah, that looks really good. A couple of things I might do is like dodge and burns a couple sections, like just making this pool area a little bit more dramatic. Like paint this on and then boost the exposure of that section, and also maybe the house. But look at that. I'm not gonna go any further and make this like, tweak this anymore. Like before, after. That looks pretty good. So here we have this photo. You know, the merged shots are underexposed, but nothing is clipping because everything is like there's not a lot of black in the shot. So just that section is, but that doesn't matter. So again, let's start by actually first putting our profile corrections. Auto for the alignment. Yep, that looks good. There we go. That looks good there. Let's actually get our exposure back to where it should be, somewhere like right there. And then here's the benefits of HDR also. You can see when I start to bring the highlights down, we have like all of that detail available because of the underexposed shot. So, you know, versus this being kind of just whited out a bit. Then we can lift the shadows pretty much all the way if you want. Whites, blacks, and we can compensate with adding contrast in. Exposure looks good there. White balance. You can target something neutral around here. So something that's truly white, like maybe one of these plugs. There we go. A little warmer. Nice. Don't really need to do vibrance or anything. Maybe just a tad bit to get a little bit, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I would just do that. So with HDR shots, you honestly have a lot more flexibility. I'm gonna dodge this corner a bit because it's like kind of dark. There we go. That's it. Done on that one, before and after. You can tell that HDR definitely has its pros, but one of the things I just didn't like about that method is sometimes your stuff can look really unnatural if you push it too far. You might like want to get even more dynamic range and do like -3 exposures or like 5 shots or something, and then it just starts to not look so good. And then also you come home with like a ton of shots from one house. Like you can have, I don't know, like 300 or 400 shots, and it's really just like, you know, not that many, like maybe like 50 images or something. And then it's a lot of heavy computing on your computer. Even on this camera, even on my computer, I'm using a 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's still like a lot of heavy duty editing on it. So for exterior shots, it can definitely be a game changer to recover that sky detail. Okay, so now let's move on to my favorite method and the one that I'm using currently and been using most of this year, and that's off-camera flash. So basically the idea for this is you're gonna be having your camera on a tripod, some trigger system, and then you're gonna hold your flash. Basically, like, check out this room here. Like, aside from exposure, like, look at this. This already pretty much looks final and edited, but it's pretty much not edited at all. But what we're doing is we're underexposing a bit, maybe like by like 1 click or so, and then with the flash, we're gonna shoot it off into the corner of the room or bounce it off something neutral, so it comes back and lights the inside naturally. And it also helps so much because like these shadows would be really dark, this would be really dark, all of this stuff wouldn't look like this basically if this was just shot without flash. So I'm going to show you a couple shots using that, how I would edit them, but you'll see that you don't have to do much because it already looks good. So I'll show you right over here on the preset if we use interior flash. Looks good, just got to fix exposure. Honestly, that's all we need. So here, all we need to do is bring up the exposure a bit, bring down highlights. We don't have to bring in the shadows all the way up to 100, I think, like maybe like right here. Make sure the whites aren't clipping. That's good. White balance, let's target something neutral. So, you know, something, this actually right here, this is actually true white. Perfect. Profile corrections are on, auto. This is shot on the Canon R6 with a 16-35, by the way. And just like that, you know, that's pretty much good. I feel like this middle section's a little dark, so I might just the overall right here. But look at that, not moving any further, just doing basic adjustments. Like, look at the color accuracy and look at how much consistent the colors are throughout the scene. We can see that like there's yellow here, but you know, using flash, it kind of like just smashes it so it's not all over the place. And you know, you can easily click your white balance and the whole room kind of stays that consistent color. So it definitely helps out a lot. The only thing I might do is maybe reduce like some of the tint over here coming in from these windows. That's about it, you know. Like, honestly, that looks really good just like that. Cool, next shot. So this is basically my camera on a tripod. I'm holding the flash like this and I'm bouncing it off like a pillar that's like right behind this scene. But yeah, see, you can tell like if this was shot natural light, these would be so overpowering because they're yellow lighting and it would probably cast all over this. But using the flash, you can just, it smashes it. It's like the only way I can describe it. Just puts it into like, just doesn't make it overpowering. And you can take this method a step further by like adding multiple flashes, but I'm keeping it simple by just using one, and it seems to work pretty well. Like, yeah, we don't really have to do anything else to this scene, you know, before and after. That's it. There, awesome, look at that. And then white balance, target something neutral like these baseboards. Bam. Everything looks white, sleek, and like true color. That's the biggest thing about Flash. Everything just looks color accurate. So a couple more adjustments, might fine tune like just some areas. But yeah, that looks really good just like that. See how fast these were, how much more quicker these were to edit? Before, after. Bam. So you can see, I personally think off-camera flash for real estate interiors is like the best option. It gives you just more color accurate shots. You only get one exposure pretty much. You don't have multiple photos to go through, no heavy merging, and editing is easier. The only downside might be like if you have a really overexposed outside, like the windows, you might just have to compensate with like either a second shot with like a natural light underexposed shot to bring that back in. But other than that, it's been like a really easy method and just better photos, honestly. So lastly, just quickly go into some drone shots. I'll show you my drone preset, natural, and then HDR look. So just basically, this is like natural, contrasty. This is like if you need it to be flatter, but even if you did that, you can add in more contrast. But all we're gonna do again is like the same concept, highlights and shadows. Make sure we have all that detail available, vibrance for those vibrant colors. Sometimes for the white balance, I'll target like the roof. Sometimes that's like a good starting point. A little too cool for me. Let's try the daylight preset. Yeah, that's actually a little bit better. Nice. This is shot on the Mavic Air 2, also in RAW. But other than that, I'm gonna just try and fix the alignment too. That's too much. Let's try level. I'm looking at this. Yeah, we don't need like this street there. Nice. That looks pretty good there. I still might just kind of like do a radial right there on the center subject, draw attention to it. But yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. Natural looking drone shots is the way to go. Like, just don't overdo them, especially because you can't push these as much as like camera files. But oh, so this is where I created this preset. The dramatic one is more of like, or the drone HDR is for like something like this, where it's like you underexpose your shot to recover that sky detail. Like, look at this one. That looks really good. So all we have to do is fix our white balance. Yeah, I'll just boost this center. Wow, that looks really cool. There you go. That's editing some drone shots. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's how I would edit my real estate photos. This is pretty much the process I've been using throughout my real estate career. It's been like 3 to 4 years now. That's pretty much my approach to editing all of my real estate photography, interior, exterior, all these different methods. Whatever method you're using right now, you can probably get these same results, no problem. So if you're interested in the presets, they're linked down below in my shop. So I think you guys will really benefit, especially if you're new into this. And so you can check those out below. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this little walkthrough on how I edit my real estate photography. Leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts and how you edit your real estate photos. Would love to hear more about it. And subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be a part of the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.